This is World News. I'm Miriam Zin, and these are the headlines. On the 24th day of the truce between Iran and the United States, Tehran announced that it had presented Washington via Islamabad a new negotiation proposal to Washington. Trump expressed his rejection and stipulated a suitable version. The UN says the crisis repercussions are escalating dangerously and must stop. In Lebanon, after a bloody Thursday, martyrs and wounded are reported in new Zionist raids on southern towns. Hezbollah says it targeted gatherings of occupation forces, and the United Nations warns of an increase in the number of victims despite the ceasefire. In Gaza, the World Health Organization calls for the immediate entry of medicines and medical supplies. The OECD calls for investigation into attack on Freedom Flotilla, and the United Nations says access to clean water is extremely limited. Hello and welcome back. Iran has sent a new proposal to the United States via Pakistan to negotiate a final end to the Middle East war. According to Iranian state media, the proposal was delivered Thursday night, with Pakistan acting as mediator, but no details were given. A previous round of talks in Islamabad failed to reach an agreement. Iran's foreign minister also held calls with counterparts in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, Iraq, and Azerbaijan to discuss efforts to end the war. CNN citing Pakistani sources reported that mediators expect a new response from the parties involved as efforts continue to revive negotiations. Sources also noted signs of some progress, though uncertainty remains about the final outcome. Iran's judiciary chief, Ghulam Hussein Mohseni said Friday that Tehran remains open to talks with the United States, but will not accept policies imposed under threat. In a video statement, Ejei added that Iran has never avoided negotiations and does not want war, but stressed it will not abandon its principles to avoid or end it. US President Donald Trump expressed dissatisfaction with Iran's new proposal for negotiations between Tehran and Washington. Speaking to reporters at the White House on Friday, he said he is unhappy with what Iran has offered so far, adding that Iranian leaders are divided and unable to agree on a strategy, and some of their demands are unacceptable.
Very important that the Pope understands. Very, very important. It would be nice not to say it. Iran killed 42,000 people that were totally unarmed. They were protesters. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. If they did, every country, including Italy, where he's stationed, every single country in the world would be in trouble. So we're doing very well with respect to that, having to do with the whole situation on Iran. The blockade is amazing. It's holding up very strong, very powerfully. And I think we're making a lot of progress in that.
A new Iranian proposal has been delivered into already strained negotiations with the United States, in what is being seen as another attempt to revive a stalled diplomatic process. But US President Donald Trump said he was not satisfied with the offer, signaling that significant gaps remain between both sides on the key issues shaping the conflict. More details with Nabil Khazini.
There is a little sign at this stage of a shift in the direction of the confrontation between Washington and Tehran. Instead, what continues seems to be a series of exchanges that suggest contact but not convergence.
In the home of...
This was made clear by the US president when he stated that Washington will not step back early from Iran, a position that signals continuity rather than adjustment in the US approach.
They're not coming through with the kind of deal that we have to have, and we're going to get this thing done properly. We're not going to leave early and then have the problem arise in 3 more years.
That message arrives alongside a new Iranian proposal, passed into an already fragile and slow-moving talks between the two sides. It is framed as an attempt to reopen space for diplomacy after months of escalation. But the response from Washington has been limited.
They want to make a deal, but
Donald Trump said he was not satisfied, leaving the substance of the proposal unaddressed, but indicating it falls short of U.S. expectations. From Tehran's perspective, this is not unfamiliar ground. Officials there describe the process as one shaped by a long history of mistrust and recent conflict, where every exchange is filtered through past experience. Their criticism centers on the belief that Washington does not engage on equal terms, but instead enters discussions with fixed conditions.
مشکل طرف آمریکایی این هست که همیشه
The problem with the American side is that it has always expected to impose its maximum demands during negotiations and throughout the entire diplomatic process, pushing the other side to accept them.
Still, the situation has not returned to open escalation. A ceasefire now, in its third week, remains in place but is repeatedly tested by mutual accusations. What remains unclear is whether this space is narrowing differences or simply containing them. The proposal sits within that uncertainty, present in the process but without a defined response and without clear indication of what comes next.
Axios citing U.S. officials reported that Joint Chiefs Chairman Dan Kane and CENTCOM Commander Brad Cooper gave President Donald Trump a 45-minute briefing on new plans for a possible military operation against Iran. A senior official in President Donald Trump's administration said Thursday that the ceasefire with Iran, which took effect in April, has ended hostilities between the two sides. The official added that the fighting, which began on February 28, is over and that there has been no exchange of fire between U.S. and Iranian forces since the fragile truce started more than 3 weeks ago. U.S. President Donald Trump said that he doesn't intend to follow the 60-day deadline requiring congressional approval to continue military operations in Iran, calling it unconstitutional. Speaking at the White House on Friday, he said past presidents have not adhered to this rule and often bypassed it, arguing that the War Powers Act has not been consistently used or followed.
I would say the fighting, if there's no deal, fighting resume. Very important is that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon, and they've agreed to that. Iran's agreed to that, and they've agreed to it very powerfully. They've agreed to give us back the nuclear dust that's way underground because of the attack we made with the B-2 bombers. So we have a lot of agreement with Iran, and I think something's going to happen very positive.
For their part, Iran's Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei said Iran has demonstrated its military capabilities and must also defeat its enemies in the economic and cultural arenas. In a message marking Workers' Day and Teachers' Day on Friday, Khamenei said workers are the key force in the economic struggle, while teachers must play the most influential role in the cultural front, calling both pillars essential for the coming period. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said support for what he called Netanyahu's gamble has cost the U.S. Treasury $100 billion so far, claiming this is 4 times the officially reported figures. In a post on X on Friday, Araghchi added that indirect costs of U.S. policies in the Middle East amount to about $500 per month for each American household, arguing that Israel first always means America last.
The Pentagon is lying. Netanyahu's gamble has directly cost America $100 billion so far, 4 times what is claimed.
The United Nations warned that the Middle East crisis is rapidly worsening and increasingly affecting countries worldwide. In a post on X on Friday, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said restrictions on navigation through the Strait of Hormuz have disrupted energy, transport, manufacturing, and food markets, choking the global economy, and stressed the need for solutions that pave the way to peace.
The repercussions of the Middle East crisis are escalating dangerously with each passing hour. Restrictions on freedom and navigation in the Strait of Hormuz are disrupting energy, transportation, manufacturing, and food markets and are stifling the global economy. Now is the time for dialogue, for finding solutions that pull us back from the brink, and for taking actions that can pave the way for peace.
Several Lebanese civilians were killed and others injured after Israeli strikes in southern Lebanon. The Lebanese Ministry of Health said Friday that air raids targeted the town of Haboush in Nabateya, killing 6 people, including a child and a woman, and injuring 8 others. Israeli aircraft also struck a house in the town of Run in the city of Bint Jbayl later in the day. Two Lebanese were killed and others injured by Israeli fire in a town in southern Lebanon. The Lebanese National News Agency, citing the Ministry of Public Health Emergency Operations Center, reported that an Israeli airstrike hit the town of Nabatiya al-Fawqa early Friday, killing 2 people and wounding 10 others. Hezbollah said it targeted a gathering of Israeli forces near a school in the town of Hula in southern Lebanon with artillery shells. In a statement on Telegram on Friday, it said the attack was a response to what it described as Israeli violations of the ceasefire and repeated strikes on several villages in southern Lebanon. The spokesman for the UN Secretary General, Stéphane Dujarric, said that casualties continue in Lebanon despite the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah.
The humanitarian front, the situation in Lebanon remains fragile and volatile despite the extended ceasefire, with hostilities continuing to cause casualties. Lebanese authorities reported multiple airstrikes and military activities across southern Lebanon today. We and our humanitarian partners are continuing to support people in need wherever we can, despite the major ongoing constraints, and we continue to facilitate humanitarian access where possible.
The World Health Organization called on the occupying authorities to allow the entry of medicines and essential supplies into the besieged Gaza Strip without delay to begin rebuilding health services on a large scale. In a post on X, WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said the organization has supported the establishment of a new family health center in northern Gaza, where medical services are extremely limited and many Palestinians cannot access treatment. The United Nations said that displaced people in Gaza have extremely limited access to clean water. UN spokesperson Stéphane Dujarric said in a press briefing in New York on Thursday that displaced families are sheltering in overcrowded tents, with no alternative arrangements in sight. He added that ongoing security incidents continue to restrict humanitarian aid access, while emergency medical services remain largely unavailable in the territory.
Turning to the occupied Palestinian territory, our humanitarian colleagues there tell us that we and our partners today visited 4 displacement sites in eastern Gaza, where about 600 families are exposed to harsh conditions and heightened risk. Our Colleagues found that people are sheltering in overcrowded tents and heavily damaged buildings with no alternative arrangements in sight. They have very limited access to clean water, and sanitation services are virtually non-existent, with solid waste remaining untreated.
The Organization of Islamic Cooperation condemned what it described as an Israeli attack in international waters against the global Sumud flotilla. In a statement on Friday, the OIC said the incident is a blatant violation of international law and relevant UN resolutions, which call for protecting humanitarian workers and ensuring aid delivery without obstruction. It urged the international community to take steps toward accountability under international criminal law and held Israel fully responsible for the safety of the convoy's participants. The UN Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination called on Israel to urgently repeal a newly adopted law on executing prisoners. In a statement on Friday, the committee said the law institutionalizes racial discrimination against Palestinians and constitutes a serious violation of human rights, expressing deep concern that it introduces the death penalty as a default punishment. In different matters, Polish Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski said Poland wants to strengthen its economic partnership with Algeria, highlighting strong potential cooperation in energy, mining, agriculture, and manufacturing. In an interview with All24 News on Friday, he called for speeding up the activation of the Joint Governmental Committee on Economic Affairs to turn closer ties into concrete investment and trade projects, including hydrocarbons, renewable energy, and digitization.
Monuments. You have set yourself a national goal to mine more stuff. We have the engineers, we have the machinery, we also now have the capital to do it. And I hope that you see us as partners that don't bring any past of a colonial nature, don't bring in any political interests. We just want to do business that is mutually advantageous. Poland is now a member of the European Union. You have an association agreement with the European Union. So there are opportunities. You know, I hope our national airlines start flying between Algiers and Poland. Businessmen like to be able to come quickly. And there are areas where we've made progress in the recent couple of decades. The digitalization of the relationship between the citizen and local authorities and other public authorities.
The Assistant Secretary General of the Arab League, Hussam Zeki, said Algeria is among the leading countries calling for the development of joint Arab action. In an interview on Al24 News' Noqtat Irtikaz program, he praised the reform vision launched by Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune during the 2022 Arab Summit, noting that its main ideas are being discussed by Arab League committees. He added that the various issues are currently being raised, examined by specialized working groups. Somali Minister of Information, Culture and Tourism Dawood Jama said Algeria is a strategic partner for Somalia, praising its principled visions or positions. In an interview on Al24 News, he stressed that Mogadishu works closely with Algeria within the Arab League and the African Union to counter any violations of Somalia's sovereignty.
We believe that such cooperation will promote Somalia's cause to make sure that we create full stability in Somalia. And that visit of our president to Algeria was a sign that Somalia considers Algeria as a real partnership and partner country and a real brother country that is helping Somalia in the need time. So we want to make sure that all what has been agreed in Algeria is implemented practically.
The head of the France-Algeria Association, Ségolène Royal, urged French citizens to abandon outdated views of Algeria, saying Paris has lost significantly due to strained relations with the country. In an interview with Algeria International on Thursday, she said France is suffering major losses because of its energy crisis and reduced access to Algerian gas, calling on French politicians to stop using the colonial past for electoral purposes.
Les douleurs du passé pour en faire un fond au moment de la crise de l'énergie, se priver du gaz algérien.
We are suffering heavy losses due to the energy crisis and the loss of access to Algerian gas, as well as the declining cooperation with our farmers, who can no longer export to Algeria despite its significant development. Therefore, we must change our view of Algeria. There are those who promote the idea that Algeria is a country that has not yet entered the modern era, but it has already done so. They only need to come and see it for themselves. Those who believe in the possibility of building win-win partnerships must overcome their attachment to the lingering scent of colonialism. And those who think that exploiting this outdated mindset will help them gain votes in upcoming elections must not be allowed to succeed. We must not accept that. They can gain a clearer perspective in the next meeting. This should not be accepted under any circumstances. The Algerian Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs in charge of the diaspora, Soufiane Chayeb, stressed the need for a high level of readiness ahead of the upcoming legislative elections. According to a Foreign Ministry statement, Chayeb made the remarks while chairing a meeting with heads of consular centers in Southern Europe at the Algerian Embassy in Madrid. He called for mobilizing all human, material, and logistical resources to ensure the best possible conditions for members of the diaspora to vote.
In preparation for the legislative elections in which the national community abroad is participating, a set of instructions was issued to mobilize all material, logistical and human resources to support the work of the Independent National Authority for Elections and to ensure that the legislative elections are conducted under the best conditions, as well as to facilitate the participation of national community abroad in this important national event.
Wrapping up on a more beautiful note, the 6th Anaba Mediterranean Film Festival concluded in the eastern Algerian city of Anaba with an awards ceremony honoring filmmakers. The event brought together artists and audiences in a tense atmosphere as everyone awaited the jury's final verdicts. Yassine Erekti reports.
Awards and tributes mark the closing ceremony of the 6th edition of the Anaba Mediterranean Film Festival, held in the eastern Algerian city of Anaba, where anticipation filled the hall as filmmakers and audiences awaited the jury's final decisions.
I'm very happy with the award because it comes at the beginning of the film's journey on the Arab level, and I'm pleased that I received the award in the festival where Egypt was the guest of honor. I received 3 awards, which shows that the work we are doing and these efforts are important.
The festival's grand prize went to Egyptian director Murad Mustafa for his film Aisha Can't Fly Away, while Palestinian filmmaker Annie Marie Jasser received the Best Director Award for Palestine 76. Meanwhile, the Algerian film Pupilla emerged as one of the night's biggest winners, securing the jury's prize, the press prize and the audience award. Organizers also paid tribute to figures dedicated to preserving historical memory, notably Algerian veteran Louisa Ari Lahriz and French historian Benjamin Stora, who expressed appreciation for their recognition.
I wasn't expecting this honor, but I would like to emphasize that I have been working on the history of Algeria for a long time, since my first work 50 years ago.
Known for its engagement with regional issues, the festival concluded with the screening of 10 minutes at most, a film addressing the situation in Beirut amid repeated Israel attacks, featuring artists from across the Mediterranean.
The Anaba, it was very wonderful experience for me. We are full of very good movies all of the weeks. And this is, I think, very international film festivals. I'm so happy for here, and I'm planning come back again on Anaba.
This year's edition stood out for its rich programming and strong organization, offering a platform for emerging cinematic voices. Events spread across multiple venues, transforming Anaba into a vibrant cultural hub and underscoring its historical and artistic significance.
This wraps up tonight's newscast, but stay with us for a special program in just a moment.